Order. The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Bowman.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And obviously this has been one of the most trying times for the state of Queensland, and I rise in my capacity as a local member from the Brisbane area who saw some of my own constituents do extraordinary things in the effort to bring relief to the communities of Grantham, to Toowoomba and, of course, North and Central Queensland that were also affected. Susie Masters lives in Victoria Point in my electorate, and she maintained, as the central person in my region providing relief and emergency services to the community of Grantham, a blog which I think is something that is important enough to be read into Hansard to be available for future generations. Susie begins with her first trip to Grantham. Words cannot describe what we saw on our first trip there almost 2 weeks after the water had been through. Although we had sent a convoy on the previous Saturday, and I've been told by several of the locals out there that we were the first out of anyone to get items out there to the people, we had to use emergency access off the main highway. I can't even start to fathom how on earth anyone could have survived such a disaster. It would be good if someone was able to show these places, like the little green building on the corner opposite where the police are set up. To see that building sitting at an angle that it is, or the pub. No doubt maybe it's been on TV, but for many of us on flood relief work, we haven't had time to stop and watch and look. While up at the fire station on Thursday, the little boy who lost his mummy, sister and brother turned up the day after at school, and behind him was his dad. Again, I just felt so inadequate as a human being, knowing that who these people were, not being able to do anything to change their lives right now, but the emotions that they would be going through must be impossible to comprehend. Thursday was a day that was flat out, a day of driving and visiting places that have been affected by these terrible floods. Having to be a mum at the start of the day and taking my child in for an interview is such a contrast. So I made a conscious decision to go and visit the RNA and to find a gentleman called Craig, who I heard was running the place for the flood victims, where they can get food, clothing, linen, toys and many other items that have been donated to the cause, very similar to what has been set up in Redlands. I got Craig's details and passed them on to people as I hear of those wanting to donate items that I know are not being received in so many distribution centres at the moment. In addition, I got a list of what he's desperately in need for, so that I can get the word out about donations, so that families and individuals who need these items after losing so much in the floods can access them for free. Even if most of it is sent to second hand, again, this is set up for the rest of this week, as the RNA is having an event here on the weekend and the doors will be closed. Next stop on the trip was Grantham, and I called in as I'd been given shovels and gun boots. On my previous trip to Grantham, I inquired if they needed these things anymore. However, as they said they had enough, we kept these items in the car, and I said I'd take them to any place where they might be of use. I won't say too much about Gatton Showground and their centre, but let's just say it's not a place I'll go back to in a hurry. The staff there, and I'm not sure if they're volunteer or paid, had a really laid-back, I-don't-care attitude. And maybe it was the fact that I was an outsider, but you would have thought that anyone there should be greeted in a pleasant manner, and they would be grateful for donations. One of the other reasons I stopped at Gatton was to purchase a case of soft drink to take to Grantham. And there is talk at the local business that they need our support to put money back into the communities which were so badly affected. We went into the main street of Gatton and had a cool drink. We went to Crazy Clark's on the hunt for lip balm, and then ducked next doors to the reject shop. Lip balm is constantly requested from Julie at Grantham as she puts them into little packs with sunscreen and insect repellent for the workers and volunteers who are constantly at the sites of devastation, helping to do whatever they can to sort through things. Then I went to Grantham, and this time the main road I'd been told about by the locals on my previous trip, I decided to use the main road, as previously I'd been using service roads, and I have to say I could not find what looked like a normal way to the town. All streets had signs for local traffic only. I didn't want to disrespect this, nor have to see any more devastation, especially as I'd always been using the emergency access road, but I needed to get to the school, which was on the other side of the railway tracks. Easy to do under normal circumstances. However, not when there is so much destruction and devastation and the feeling of death around you. My stomach was churning and I half wanted to just turn the car around and get out of there as fast as I could. But I got directions from the police, where they have a portable office set up, the police bus like you see on TV, where they take people for breath tests on those TV shows. And then they have a few marquees with folding tables and chairs set up, so many flies to bug you and a generator for lighting to run the cooler, which obviously will be full of water for police and workers in the township. There were houses with police tape all around them, houses painted with words on them saying unsafe. Some buildings were sitting at 45-degree angles, and the buildings looked like They would have originally been beautiful heritage-listed buildings from the 1800s. Everything in the main road was wiped out. And to see garage doors twisted and bent, but still hanging, which show the ferocity and the pressure of the water when it hit the buildings, is something no one can ever imagine. To see the pub with massive chunks of the building totally missing and other parts of it looking like nothing had touched it. I think what really was amazing about this town is it looked like a bomb had blown it away. There were the hand-painted banners erected in the last two buildings of the main road that said, "Thank you to the people of Australia for helping Grantham in their time of need." Those generous donations from so many people, so many walks of life. These people would all know someone who perished on that day in January. Another photo I would have loved to have taken for people, just so that they could try and comprehend how bad this disaster was, would have been, look at that gorgeous river, how it's been carved up and looks like a quarry more than a lovely riverbank, with whole trees looking like Lego ornaments. Once I got the directions by the police on how to get to the school, I arrived at the marquee and unloaded bootloads of pots, pans, cooking utensils, cutting boards that had been so generously donated by the people of Redlands. The husband brings home the money from work and the wife goes shopping with whatever's on the list which we publish on the Facebook site. As you will see, they give because they know the items will get to the people who are so much in need. For that I'm truly humbled again for the generosity of strangers. And to Delma from Redlands, they loved those eggs. Almost 60+ dozen that I took out the previous week have all been used up. Delma, you're a gem for going out of your way to fetch those items that were so desperately needed on the wish list, to drop them on our doorstep so I can take them out every week, along with many other people who will read the blogs and pass them on to other people via networking sites. My house is no longer a home, it's a mini receiving and dispatch centre for the people of Grantham and other flood-affected areas. After dropping off the things to the marquee at the community centre where people congregate for breakfast, their lunch, community dinner nights on Tuesday and Friday evenings, cups of tea or a cool drink, I went to the fire station. And this is where all the other donations are taken for the victims so they can get supplies of non-perishable food items, toiletries, clothing, linen, and some of the odd requests, like brand new men's boxer shorts, or like last week, a cut-out Bundy bear, which was washed away from someone's unique Bundaberg rum collection. I've now had 5 offers of a cut-out Bundy bear to replace the one that was washed away. The fire station is where I meet Linda each week, and I'm greeted with a hug and a "how are you going?" I write each and every trip that I do a wish list, and I bring it home and type it up and attach it to the blog. It's important for people to donate goods and to see that those goods are delivered. In addition, it helps them to understand just what it's like out there. Those of us who have not been out there and seen the remnants of the floods, that only see things via the media, do need to know what's going on. It's an instinct we all have to be a little curious and just to know what's being done. While at the fire station last Thursday, the little fellow who lost his mummy, sister and brother turned up for his day at school, and behind him was his dad, and they'd buried their family just 11 days ago. 3 days after the funeral, I'd seen his dad riding on the lawnmower, doing his work at the local primary school, where he is the groundsman. Those people who've lost so much not only have lost family members or friends, their homes, toys, personal belongings, nothing can replace so much of that. As each event comes along through the year, we'll realise that they have no mum with whom to celebrate Mother's Day, no dad on Father's Day. Everyone lost their home and will at Christmas realise that they don't have their usual Christmas tree or their decorations that come down off a dusty shelf to be put up because they've been more than likely washed away. And every single event in their lives and every new day will only bring back more of those sad and frightening memories. Just as it is for kids out there who can barely stand being in the bath anymore because it reminds them of the day that the water came and washed everything away. After leaving Grantham, I drove back to Brisbane, took an exit to Goodna, where we'd opened a depot, dropping off truckloads of donations for 500 to 600 homes that had been damaged. I heard stories about how people were on that first weekend just walking the streets, not having even eaten since the floods. The volunteers at our centre went out there and started handing out bottles of water and food. Their pride and culture, plus the way they lived in their own communities, probably prevented them from realising that they really should be asking for help. One lady who was unemployed somehow managed to get to the underground car park of Max Employment at Queen Street, and she contacted us, and we filled the car many times over with non-perishable food items, clothing, linen, toiletries, home-baked cakes from the good people at Meals on Wheels in Cleveland, and some of the 7 pallets of bananas which were donated to our centre to give to the victims. We had carloads of items going over there every day for a week, and if it had not been for our depot, which we started at Capalaba the day after floods hit Toowoomba and the Lockyer Valley, these people in Goodna would have, I think, been completely forgotten, as the Red Cross and Salvation Army were so focused on running evacuation centres elsewhere. This week has been frustrating and more than normal in so many ways. I personally haven't been displaced or lost anything, but I'm distraught to hear the stories of so many people still without power, without a home to live in, without items, even though they were donated to many of the centres. However, these centres, which are run by charities and pay their staff to operate, in many cases are closing down. I've heard how many people have had to go to Lifeline and purchase furniture, and I've constantly heard that no charities will accept clothing or toy donations anymore. Yet I've had more than one person contact me via our relief site, desperately asking for help for people that they know that they've adopted. The need for furniture or toys for one family of 4 children, and for the mum who's got cancer, who are moving into a home only just this week in the Ipswich area. If it wasn't for a group of ladies getting a word out in the Esk region, the Salvation Army would not have turned up to take over. These people working tirelessly in terrible conditions to help the elderly. One poor dear woman was stranded by the floods, was eating dry dog food crumbs, when the volunteers who went out to see what they could do found her. These volunteers were not part of any mud army, nor have they got their paperwork that say they're a registered volunteer. Due mainly to the fact that they are registered with volunteer groups, they would not have even known about the towns that needed so much help. I have an acquaintance who's a soldier at Enoggera. I met him on Christmas Day when we were doing volunteer work and Christmas lunches for the homeless in King George Square. Well, to that point, he and I were going to help one person get set up who was an ex-army who'd spent several years on the Sunshine Coast as a homeless person, till he was taken in Brisbane, where he's now in a shared community. On Christmas Day, the soldier and I organised help. He was going to go and help the homeless man with spare furniture, everything he had in his garage, and I was going to give him pillows and blankets along with sheets and towels. Well, 2 weeks ago, I got back in touch with the soldier by text message to find out when we were going to get these things to the homeless person, and I found out that the soldier was out sandbagging and moving people's furniture, and at the same time his own home in Toowong, which he kept telling people where his unit was located and went under in 74, was completely flooded again. He lost everything, and not only that, his insurance company has left him high and dry. He went out and obviously spent some money at a big department store buying a lounge suite, a dining suite, fridge and TV and washing machine, but the $1,000 didn't cover this. Had he been in a relationship and had his kids actually living with him, then maybe he could have purchased these things and been okay. But no, his family and ex-partner live somewhere else. Another friend of mine lost everything in Brisbane Street, Riverview. I guess I'd have to say, fortunately for her, she was in a housing commission home, and she also has 4 kids, so she was slightly better off because she received $400 for each of her kids. Although a few of them are adults, so I guess they could have got $1,000. But she's in another home now, but that place is not home for her. They're desperate for wardrobes so they can pick all their things, mostly donations from friends, up off the floor. It's been 5 weeks now since the floods, and she's getting incredibly depressed and emotional. These past few weeks have been full of cleaning up, finding a place to live, moving in, getting pieces of second-hand furniture to use in the new place. But nevertheless, where is the emotional support that these charities were asking for cash donations so that they could provide counselling for all of those who were affected by the floods? And tonight, on the 20th of February 2011, I read that one of the ladies, who often donates items to me to take out for Grantham, has listed on her Facebook page that $245 million has been donated, but only $13 million handed out. These people need that money now, not down the track. There will be more homeless people and families as they cannot afford to purchase items to refurnish their homes and pay outstanding bills and get on with their life, especially where insurance companies have reneged. Along with this, Goodna is waiting for papers to be signed off to say that they can have apprentices come and plaster walls. Goodna has plaster coming out of their ears with so much of it donated, but unfortunately they can't get tradespeople to erect it, unless they meet the criteria of being a Queensland registered tradesperson or if they come from New South Wales to be registered with the BSA. People who are qualified, electricians who have done plastering in the past, are not allowed to go plastering now. Cathy Beauchamp told me from Westlife Church that she's running the coordination of many houses in Goodna that are being repaired and rehoused. So much red tape is what's holding up these houses being worked on so families can start to move back in and get their life restarted. Goodna is now a ghost town except at the train station where commuters park their cars. You have to drive down the middle of the road where it's marked for no traffic access. Potholes are so huge you shouldn't even be driving there. They're like moon craters. She also said that double beds and queen-sized beds are impossible to come by when refurbishing the homes. She told me that the people of Goodna have to go to the Salvation Army where they're given vouchers for major stores, and these vouchers people can get a brand new fridge and washing machines. But I'm curious to know why this isn't offered in all areas of Ipswich and, of course, the Lockyer Valley. I've just received the wish list from Grantham, but at the same time I'm putting word out for toys along with this. Unfortunately, I don't have room in my own home to take these donations, but I have the contact details. And the things we need in Grantham right now are dolphin torch batteries, hoses, insect repellent, power boards, extension cords, air fresheners, fabric softeners, insect repellent, paper towels, mouthwash, shaving cream, bicarb soda, cooking oil, mixed herbs, picnic salt, plain flour, sultanas and white vinegar. Nothing could more exemplify how everything has been lost in this tiny community. They're a proud people. Obviously, everyone in Queensland are proud and love the lifestyle that we enjoy. No one could have predicted this nor seen it in advance. The self-reliance that we traditionally associate with Queenslanders was no better on show than at this moment. It's a shame that it had to be under such incredible circumstances. But, as you know, with despondency, with the desperation, there is also the elation, sometimes the frustration, but in the end, Queensland will persevere.